On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, the man who has been covering the Avs longer than anybody, Mr. Adrian Dater, joins the show. Is he really going to hang it up after the season's over? A lot to get to today. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. I won't go on with all the social media that you can follow us on because there's a lot to talk to. Mr. Adrian Dater is joining us for the first time ever, sir. And when you kind of threw out there in your blog that this was probably going to be it for you, I was like, I gotta doing this for 5-6 years now and have not had you on. And I was like, well, now is the time. So thank you so much for taking some time and joining us here today, sir.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and you could have called a lot sooner. I would have come on, but glad to be here eventually. And awesome shirt by Shaggy.
It is
right away. Kiss is the best band, obviously, in world history and the greatest music ever. So it's great to see Shaggy representing the band there.
That's right. Heaven on Fire is probably one of the most underrated songs on
yes.
Green.
So, underrated is probably a kind word for that song. I never was quite into Kiss exactly for all the music, although I do love a lot of their music. But yeah, I was a teenager when I got sucked in by all the stage, and the fire and the costumes and everything. And, it was very effective marketing technique for young boys.
Oh my God. Yeah. So when they lost the makeup, were you one of the ones that was like, put it back on, please? Or
oh no, I was a big fan by then. That was probably my biggest fan time in the whole era was the non-makeup days.
Wow.
Starting with the Lick It Up album and all through the 80s when not as many fans are out there. I was right there. I was there for the awful album called The Elder. And then when they did put the makeup back on in 96, though, I was there, lower bowl floor seats at McNichols Arena. I actually wrote a big article for the Sunday paper, I remember, for the Denver Post about that. My memories of it. I think it was called Confessions of a Kiss Fanatic. And it was a humorous look at my days growing up being a fan. And lo and behold, Kiss actually took a screenshot of that article and put it on a video that they put out like a year or two. I was, like I said, it doesn't get any better than that.
So this is probably the point where I should not tell you that I'm the total opposite of Kyle, and I could never get into
it.
I couldn't do it.
It's okay. A lot of people have told me that. So anyway, we're here to talk about it, right?
Yes, let's dive into that. We're just, like I said, got a lot to get to. So let's start with the here and now. And the thing that most Avs circles were talking about this offseason, we knew going into this offseason it was going to be about Gabe Landeskog, Nichushkin. When I had written this question for you, these interviews that went on today had not taken place, and you heard some sound bites from Nathan MacKinnon and Jared Bednar saying, as far as Nichushkin, they're open arms, welcoming him back whenever that might happen. What was your take on the whole thing? What are you hearing about? I think we know when the returns are going to be, but just your angle from those two things with Landeskog and Nichushkin.
Yeah, well, I just wrote a column for my own site on it, and what I wrote is what I'll say here. I'm a little surprised to hear that the word open arms was used. To me, that sounded, I know that's probably the thing you want to say as a team and Boise, good player and all that, but a little surprised to hear that term. This is a guy who, made some poor decisions for 2 years in a row in the playoffs, and then definitely cost the team in the playoffs. And we can speculate all we want on whether it might have cost them another Stanley Cup. Twice now. But that's what Jared Bednar said, and Nathan McKinnon said that we'll welcome him back. Part of a little bit of my cynical side wants to wait until I actually see it with my own eyes, and but surprise was the word, and yet not that surprised because the Avs are in such a sort of a corner on that whole story, right? If you just give up Nichushkin or trade him away for pennies on the dollar, you're potentially trading away an all-star winger who you guys know the percentage probably better than I do, but it's like 68% or something when he's in the lineup, the winning.
That's crazy.
So it's a little surprised, but again, let's talk again in November. I'd still like to see a little bit more proof about what they really are going to do with him.
Yeah, and I found those comments as well a little shocking, especially after the locker room comments coming after the playoffs last year, and McFarland coming out and say we did look at the contract, and you saw all these 1 year, $1.5 million, $1.2 million deals. You thought the Avs were trying to piece together a team in case either Landeskog or Nichushkin didn't come back. So, do you think this is the Avs exploring possible ways to make a deal to facilitate Nichushkin out and they're just not finding anything? Or is this just new season, new attitudes? Let's just make the best of this.
I mean, I think there's some truth in both things. You always want to present the front that, this guy is going to be great when he comes back, and boy, would every team love to have him, and so would we. Bednar did say today that he thinks that Nichushkin will have a real big statement to make to his teammates. Yeah, it better be. Because this is twice now, and this is a team that even more than the previous year, I don't think anybody really expected that team to quite win a cup. Not to say that they couldn't have, but it always a little bit of a cup hangover feel to that team, even though they played great down the stretch and won that division. I think this past season was when they were really like, okay, we're going to get it back. And they played tough all year long, and they had a single goal, and then boy, by game, what was it, 3 at home, 4. Nichushkin is flunks a drug test, and they were just awful that night and basically never recovered. So, Nichushkin, I think they have to say the right things. They can always, even though they're not supposed to have any real official interaction with him or anything to do with his situation. Of course, they're going to possibly feel out whether there's a potential trade. Hey, what if this team gives us, whatever, some offer they can't refuse. I kind of doubt that will happen. I think, from what it sounds like, and I always sort of thought this would happen, but I guess I've been 50-50. They're in a corner, so you might as well take him back and hope for the best. That's the best situation that could happen, really, right?
And what about Gabe? What are you thinking with him? I know it's just up in the air, and it's just, hey, they're obviously giving him the time that he needed, and it's sounding like, you got the sooner rather than later comment from him during that golf tournament.
Right.
Seems like he's doing okay. Like he's progressing the way that they want him to progress. But what's your take? Do you think that he can return to full form, or there's the rigors of a hockey season are just going to be too much for a guy who's missed that much time and had that type of surgery?
I mean, it just is so unknown still. Everybody can talk about how great he looks skating in circles and playing
with nobody on him.
There. But when you really, cut your feet into that ice and have to plant and turn around and get hit at the same time and do these incredible, contortions on your legs that you need to do as a hockey player, I don't think anybody can say one way or the other. It's just going to come down to how he does when the real rubber hits the road. I do think he'll attempt to come back and play. I also think that he's the type of player that won't have to, relearn everything about his whole hockey life, because he plays north-south type of game, and I think it'll be even more that way as an older player, where he's just going to go to the net, try to tip in pucks and grab for rebounds and hit people in the corners. And, I don't think we'll ever see that back-checking demon that he was at times defensively. He had really good wheels at times in earlier in his career, very good defensive player. Probably, you would guess that he's older and coming off 2 seasons of not playing with a knee injury, that he's probably not going to have the same speed. But, we're all just sitting around waiting for him to really test it, do it once and for all in the heat of battle and get hit and play real NHL hockey. And, we still have not seen that. So it's just hard to say anything that's just more than just a guess.
Sure.
Do you anticipate his return being a limited role, like maybe 10, 15 minutes a night, 15 pushing it? Like, should we prepare ourselves for kind of a limited Gabe Landeskog return, like select dates?
I don't think so. I mean, if he's in the top 6, which I think that's what they want still, I think you're still 15 to 20, maybe a little bit more at times. He looks fine out there, right? His leg looks good. You don't even notice a really big scar on his knee. He's out there in shorts in a golf tournament yesterday, and so I think I'm, nothing but nobody said like to me that I still talk to with the team like, things are taking a bad turn or anything. It's positive, and yet everybody's still waiting to see how he really does like I said, when it's really time to prove himself and you get hit and it's time to play real NHL hockey. That's still something that he has not, passed any tests yet.
Right. All right, let's get a first break in here and we come back. Want to ask you about Alexander Georgiev. So let's hold on to that and get our first break in, and we'll do that on the opposite end. All right, let's hear from FanDuel. You heard us talk about FanDuel quite a bit. It's America's #1 sports book. We got something a little bit different for you now through September 22nd. Not that far away. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday out-of-market game, and all you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time, kind of like the Broncos seem to be canceling this season so far. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so Kyle and I did an episode about a week ago, and we kind of said that no matter what Alexander Georgiev does this season, if he has a good year, then is that going to entice some other team out there to kind of throw money at him and he walks? And if he has a poor year, the Avalanche can't keep doing that with him, and they might not bring him back as a free agent. So we kind of felt like no matter what he does, is this his last year with the Avalanche? What's your take on the whole Georgiev thing for this season?
My take is I'd probably bet that it will be his last, just for so many reasons. Like, he's going to have to be great to get a new contract. That, for me, great means they're going to have to go to, the Western Finals at least. He's going to have to win some stuff in the playoffs, and he did last year. He won a round, and he was good in the playoffs. He's one of their better players after that horrible game against Winnipeg in Game 1. He, me and probably everybody else, by playing well. And of course, it also helped that Connor Hellebuyck literally couldn't stop a beach ball in that. So that helped. But, so I thought he finished the season pretty well after what was not very good season, I thought. He won a lot of games, but he got a lot of goal support. Just never quite felt like he was, dangerous in net as far as like stealing games and getting guys' heads. He's got one last chance. Year 3 of his deal. I always like to put money on players who are in their last year of their deals before they can be a free agent, because they know that they can get paid. So, I like that aspect of it, but I'm going into the season a little hesitant to say I believe in Georgie moving, as he's going to bounce back and be a Vezina Trophy finalist again. I just am.
All right. Oh, hang on, Kyle. You're got to fix your mic for a second. I know let Kyle get back in here, but yeah, that's kind of what we were feeling with Georgie. Like, just you get back on, Kyle?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and with both of those, either a great year or a bad year, this is probably going to be the last year for Georgie and Colorado. How does that supposed to make Avalanche fans feel great about goal support when it comes to who's between the net? Because you get Eustace behind him. Is this something the Avs fans could be? Is Georgie going to be playing for money wherever he's going next, or is he just going to be punching in, punching out? If I do good or if I do bad, I know this is not going to last for me here. And it's just a lethargic effort out of Georgie.
No, I don't think so. He'll be motivated. He knows he didn't play all that great last year, and I think he'll be motivated. Again, he's playing for a contract, his next deal, and I always like guys who are doing that. So I actually think, Georgie could play very well. And it's just, I don't think that he has ever shown me that he's a money goalie just yet. And I know he's won a round, and that's great. But, he lost the first year to Philip Grubauer and the Seattle Kraken. I just haven't seen it yet. I know he had some good numbers a lot of the times. For me, I don't know. Maybe I'm a harsh judge about goalies. I try not to be. It's such a hard position. And I know how, believe me, seeing guys for 30 years try to play that position. Maybe I was spoiled by watching, Patrick Waugh in person. I always, it's a hard, you can't be fair to any goalie and judge against Patrick, but I don't know. For me, it's about those money situations. It's about being, just a guy who steals you games.
Right.
I thought he did that at times his first year. Before that, it's been a while before the Avs goalies were really doing that on a. I thought the best goalie season before. In the last 15 years was probably Craig Anderson. That first year he was in Denver.
Yeah.
I thought he was unbelievable. And then the next year he tweaked a knee and the team thought he was faking it and they traded him stupidly. And then they were awful for the next 3 years. So anyway.
What do you think the Avs do then? Looking ahead at the goalie position, if it's not him, do they dive into the UFA and try to find another Georgiev type of player with the dollar amount and things like that, or with all these goalies they brought in, and you're always hearing Nabokov, but I can't imagine they turn to somebody like him right now with the team. With every year you're going in wanting to win a Stanley Cup, and you're going to put an unproven rookie goalie at your A1 spot right now. Like, so what do you think of the long-term plan is? Maybe not even long-term, just a year out.
I think Annanen's going to get a very good chance to get that job. I think they're pretty high on Annanen. I think he played well last year. I think if you ask me, by the end of the year, I think the guys had more confidence in Annanen than they did Georgie.
Really?
They won that first round somehow because Hellebuck was awful. But I think Annanen proved to some people that he can play. He had good numbers, and I think if Annanen just has a good, if he gets the range, okay, you're the number one guy, and he can start off well in that and do well and get more confidence. This could be Justus Annanen's team moving forward. Very possible. I think he's a good. He's much better than when I saw him as a play all the time as an Eagle. He looks trimmer, quicker. I thought it was with the Eagles. He was a little slow side to side. Looked a little chunky. He's gotten better shape now, and I think he gained a lot of confidence last year. I don't think it's out of the question to say that he could be the guy of the future.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that because he could have taken playoff time if it wasn't for the sickness.
Yeah.
So
I know.
I think it was close. I think it was close to happening if Georgiev had another disaster game. What about rookies, namely Callum Ritchie? What do you think his chances are of taking a roster spot for this year? Did the Belmar PTO kind of maybe throw a wrench into that at all, or any other rookies or AHL guys? We're big Jean-Luc Foudy fans over here, so
I am too.
Yeah. So what are you thinking for the kind of like those fourth line guys?
That's a tough call. I think they'd love to have him. But I do think you're right. The Belmar signing is a little suspicious to me that they don't. Number one, don't think he's ready to play top 6 minutes, and two, you don't want to play him on the fourth line, right? He's not not a fourth line center ever, probably. So I think he's going to start the year. I think he's going to play 9 games. I think he's going to go back to Oshawa. I just think the numbers are not in his favor as far as being a top 6 guy, assuming that Landeskog and Nichushkin come back, because then that's going to create just that much more,
logjam basically.
Logjam up front.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I won't be shocked though if they keep him, because he's talented, and I always like to keep a guy around if he's talented. But it's sometimes it's just too soon. Sometimes. It's too bad he can't play for the Eagles in the regular season.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on playoffs. This guy could come back and be a good playoff player. I mean, all that has to happen is Oshawa's season to be over, regular season, and he can sign with the Eagles or the Avs and play beyond that 9-game mark, I believe. Yes, for the playoff. There's probably some little technicality. You guys might know this better about the 9-game rule, even if it goes into the playoffs.
I think he'd be able to. Yeah.
I think, Wolski played, 9 games in 2008, was it? And then went back to Brampton. He came back for the playoffs, if I recall. So he played more than 10 games. Somebody might want to double check me, but I think I'm right on that.
Okay.
So I think let's maybe just look for him to be a playoff guy now and joining the team, just like Cale Makar did, in 2018.
They like to do that. They like to, not even Cale Makar. I think didn't Ranta? I think Sampo Ranta first game was in the.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So they don't shy away from doing stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
And do you think Callum Ritchie is at a point in his career where he's worth maybe sticking around in Colorado for whatever happens to that Roaring 20s line? I know it started off incredibly last year and then it kind of fell apart. And if that's something that if things aren't going exactly where the Avs want, is that where they can possibly start inserting Callum Ritchie and then start making some moves on that third line with whatever they decide to do with that Roaring 20s line?
I don't think so. I think Ross Colton is your guy, third line center. He's pegged in. He's assigned a longer term. And I thought he played fine last year. He was, I think there were times he didn't produce as much as maybe they wanted, but I thought he had a solid year, really. So, no, I don't think so. That's the problem. If you don't play Ritchie top 6 minutes, you do risk him just becoming a guy who doesn't get many minutes on the bottom lines, and then he doesn't score much, and then he loses some confidence. And has seen that happen too many times to players where they lose a little confidence if they're not quite ready. They're not named Nathan McKinnon or something. I mean, Ritchie, for all of these, look good, and he could have gone higher in the first round if he'd not been injured with his shoulder. Yeah. But ifs, ands, and buts, whatever the saying. He went where he went. If everybody thought he was, everybody knew, okay, he's got a shoulder injury, but he'll be back. I think a lot of teams would have taken him in the top, 15 if they thought he was that great. He did slip to 27. So I like him. I like the way he looks, but it's just not, elite enough at this level to say, all right, we're going to keep him no matter what because he's so good. He's going to be good for us.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's get our final break in here. And when we come back, a couple more things on this team, and then we'll talk about you and what your plans are. We'll do that right after this. Let's hear from Gametime. It has the new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Some of the things that we love about the Gametime app, the all-in pricing. When you toggle this feature on, it shows you the total of your tickets up front with no surprise fees at checkout. the seat views. You got panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference, and Gametime ticket coverage. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. And download Gametime today, because what time is it? It is game time. All right. So we got a question from one of our listeners asked about Eric Brandstrom. And do you feel that like he could, I'm trying to find the question here where he asked it specifically. Do you think Eric Brandstrom could have a career revamp like the Jonathan Drouin season of a year ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that signing. I think the Avs defense is going to be better this year. They've got, I mean, it's going to be some unhappy guys. 8-9 guys who don't get in the lineup. 7-8 guys, right? That's a good lineup. I mean, they signed a bunch of veterans. I think Brandstrom's probably the best of the bunch. Good player in the old, little not too long ago. So, yeah, I definitely think that could be a great signing for the Avs. They've had a knack for doing that on the free agent scrap heap in recent years. It's helped them win a cup. They had that great deadline in 2022 where they just find these guys who maybe thought, people thought they were a little washed up, and no, they weren't. Like Cogliano was Exhibit A. So I like Branson's addition. I think he's going to push people to get a starting top 6 job for sure.
I'm big on Shillington. I like that guy.
Yeah, I like him too. Physical, can't have enough D. Joe Sakic always told me that, especially when he was a GM, you can't have enough D.
Yeah.
So I still remember in 2018 when they were playing Duncan Siemens and David Warsofsky 5 and 6 in the playoffs.
Wow.
And that's when Joe Sakic used to use that saying a lot more. You never have enough D.
Found out quick.
Didn't have enough that year.
Okay.
And that's the thing with this current roster construction. Yeah, you can't have enough D. Yeah, you can't have enough forwards. And you have a plethora of goalies. When do you start anticipating moves for roster compliance?
Oh, it's always right before opening night. I mean, you've got the last night. They're always scheming their way. So yeah, opening night is when you're going to see a full roster compliance. Otherwise, yeah, they're always scheming right till the very last second.
Yeah. So and just overall for this team this year, what's kind of your? I don't want to make you throw out a prediction or anything like that, but I think you're getting some people that feel like the Avalanche are going to be the Avalanche and be a competitive team, even with the Nichushkin, Landeskog stuff and all that going on. And then I think there's some other people that kind of just are getting like, I want to say like tired of the Avalanche and because they didn't make any big deals in the offseason, and we kind of anticipated they were not going to. So maybe people outside of Avalanche circles who saw like, oh, they didn't really make that many big moves. Well, they didn't need to. They have a lot of their big guys already locked up, and that's what you want. I don't know if there's like Avalanche fatigue going on, and some people feel like, oh, if they're, a bold prediction, if there's one team that falls out of the Central, it's the Avalanche. So I think that choir is a little bit not as loud, but they are there. So what is your take on how the season's going to go for the Avs?
Well, I don't think the Avs are going to drop out of anything. Not with the young Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon still in the 20s. It's just they've got the two best players at their position, basically. Center we can argue for sure on the other guys, but I'll take Cale Makar over any single defenseman in the league. I think he's going to have a great year. Knock on wood. He has all these little nagging injuries. Hopefully he's, not going to have those this time. But you know what, though? I think as cliche as it's going to sound, I think it's a lot of it is so much is going to be wrapped up in the Gabe Landeskog story. They did miss his leadership the last 2 years. No question about it. They did. And I think if he comes back and can play it all like he did, I think that just super energizes the team. now they have a rallying cry again. Let's win one for Gabe again. Nichushkin, assuming, let's say he's back and he's healthy and he doesn't get in trouble again. You're talking about a great player. You add those two guys to an already good lineup. Boy, that's a really deep team again up front. You knock everybody down a peg. Maybe you don't have to play Miles Wood as much, or anybody on the fourth line as much. Druin's back. I thought that was pretty iffy at times, but he took a little less money than he could have had, so I was surprised by that. But he actually, Alan Walsh's agent told me that he said he took a little less because happiness. Wow, what a statement, right? He wanted to be happy instead of making a little more money. That was, my cynical ears hadn't heard that kind of thing in a long time.
What do you think happens with him after this year?
I think he's going to have a good year. He had to prove himself last year. He's got that stupid fluke injury in the playoffs that really did hurt the team too. Mm-hmm. He was never quite the same after that in the playoffs. I didn't think so. I'd predict good things for Jonathan Drouin. I think we're talking 60 points again if he stays healthy and keeps playing with Nathan McKinnon and Rand.
Yeah. Can the Avs afford him after if he puts up a year like that?
No, I think this will be his last year. I think he's going to play for contract now, and then he's going to take the big money and leave. I think Alan Walsh gave him 1 year of a discount. And then if he puts up the numbers they think he could, and then I think he's going to want, $5-6 million on his next deal. And I think the Avs will probably say goodbye.
Not too rich.
Yep.
And to wrap it up on this team, is there anything Bednar can do to get any notoriety in the league?
God. Drives us crazy.
It's like never mentioned in like the Jack Adams conversation or in those NHL.com polls. Like he's never mentioned. Is this just something we have to understand? It's just an understood that just Bednar is just kind of absorbed into the image of the team, and it's never anything he does. It's just the Avalanche.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jared Bednar is like one of the best guys I've ever met in the game of hockey, and that's saying a lot because of a long time in covering guys. Just always so consistent, professional, courteous. He's not a pushover though. Like players know not to. That's how he got so much respect. Is that and they did try to push him. I mean, those first couple of years for Jared Bednar were tough. I remember Nathan McKinnon throwing up his hands on the bench in Calgary, I think it was, and shooting his mouth off. And that could have been it for him. They had a 48-point season that first year. He hung in there and he got better, and he finally earned those guys' respect. And boom, 4 years later, he's winning a Stanley Cup. Who cares if he doesn't get Jack Adams votes that much? I've always said that the NHL is such a political game when it comes to coaches and GMs. Remember, Joe Sakic didn't get a GM of the year award either, did he? I don't think he still has.
He did. He got a GM. I think it was the last year, but all these years were going by, and we're like, he's not even nominated. What are you talking about? And then he finally won it. Yeah.
Well, right. Okay. He should have won one the year before you. I remember that. Okay. So I'm sorry to Joe.
Yeah.
Know that. But, Jared Bednar is just not a guy who's going to make real flashy headlines with his words. He's just going to be really professional and thoughtful and just a really insightful guy about hockey. He tells it like it is in a way, but he doesn't doesn't say anything too controversial when he says like it is. He always, he's respectful of everything. He doesn't want to throw anybody under the bus. And today's world, media world, and it's been that way. Not just today; it's been that way a while now.
Yeah.
Boring doesn't sell papers.
Exactly.
But I guarantee you, nobody wants to get rid of Jared Bednar and that Avalanche front office staff. Not at all. I think he's as long as he wants. Well,
absolutely.
Because they have another 48-point season, it could be trouble.
Yeah.
That'll ever happen again.
I thought of this when you mentioned Gabe Landeskog and the missing his leadership. This is something Colin and I have talked about a few times that we've thrown out to listeners and things like that. If Gabe Landeskog was not here and the captaincy was up for someone to take, I'm in camp McKinnon, and I think Kyle, you're in camp McCarr.
Mm-hmm.
Of who the captain would be. Who do you think where would it go?
I'm with Shaggy McCarr.
Really?
I mean, Kel McCarr is like, Mr. Perfect in a lot of, he's just, he's like, just the guy who shows up at your, taking your daughter out and he's like, he overwhelms you with his charm and everything. And you think, oh, I'm suspicious of this guy. And then he wins everybody over with his manners and his charm and his professionalism. Everything he does is successful. He's a smart guy too. People don't talk enough about how like he reads really complex books about psychology and
really,
really, really interesting guy. If you really try to peel back the onion a little. Unfortunately, I don't think the Avalanche PR staff gives him any time to really talk anymore, or anybody to really examine him, in depth anymore. It's just sort of, here's just a couple minutes, guys, and so that's another subject. But I think he's more even-minded guy, even-tempered guy. Nothing against McKinnon that way, but I think I think when you're talking about a captain, you want a guy who can sort of talk to anybody probably on the team. And let's face it, McKinnon has been, I've seen it firsthand. He's not always the most approachable guy, especially after a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. If looks could kill, I would have been time ago from Nathan McKinnon. Trying to talk to him after a loss or anything, just, the guy is. So yeah, I'm McCarr. He's just, he's just Mr. Perfect. So I'm going with Kale.
All right. Fair enough. So let's get into you here for a minute here, Mr. Dater. So you, like I said, you put up on your blog that this was probably going to be it for you, and people that know and people that don't know, you've been covering them since day one, since they moved it to Denver. You are solely credited for them being named the Avalanche. At least that's what I say. I feel like that. I mean, if it wasn't for you, they would be not the Avalanche.
It would have been called the Rocky Mountain Extreme.
Mountain Extreme. Right, and we have you to thank for that. But you this is you wrote it, said that are you officially like committing to that, or could it be like you get to the end of the year, no, I'm not ready, or have you?
No, this is it. I've overstayed my welcome as it is, guys. Come on. I'm going to be 60 years old in January. I mean, I always said, boy, if I'm 60 years old, trying to be in this young man's game still, a young woman's game too, please take me away. Lead me away by the hand. I still think I can write well and all that, but I don't have the, absolute passion for the little minutia that I used to have. Every little note was the end of the world for me. And if you're a beat writer, I'm not on the road anymore with the team. I'm not even in the locker room anymore. So I'm just sort of commenting from afar. I still have a little good sources with the team, and I can still break some news, and I still give myself some credit for that. But no, this is going to be it. I'm going to need some help getting through the year too, because I know those nights in November are going to come, and January are just. Where you're like, oh no, it's game 41, and you've got another 6 months to go. And it's just time. I used to, my last couple of years on the beat in the room, I was starting to feel really old then. I was looking at guys that are say 18, 19 years old, and I'm in my late 50s. I felt like old. And as much as I loved it still and love writing, I still like to write. So that's always going to be there. But the lifestyle, the travel, all that stuff, it wasn't really that fun anymore for me. And it showed up in some ways where I was having some problems in life. I had some problems with some, I've written about it, talked about it. I had some prescription drug problems, had some alcohol problems. I was just sort of looking for ways to sort of compensate for some problems that I was having, and it was the wrong way. And I had to change some ways, and I'm glad I got some help. But again, it's not to say I might never comment on the Avs again. I mean, I'm not going to be often. Hopefully not next year. I mean, there might be somebody I can chip in with sometime and be a sort of a guest commenter. I don't know. But as far as running my own site, no, this is it. But I plan to go out as best as I can. Full passion for every game. Make a lot of phone calls and try to just keep up as much as I can. And, that's it. I've got a loyal group of readers who've been with me for a lot of years, and grateful to them. And just hopefully go out with have my head held high.
Nice. Go.
Yeah, and with 30 years being there since the beginning, watching, I mean, what they call the golden years in the 90s, and then the kind of the valley, and then coming back up again, through that whole ride, is there something you're going to miss about that ride? Just the being on the beat and covering the Avs. Honestly, and like Chris said, since the beginning, is there going to be something you walk away and you're like, and it's going to tug at you when you watch the game, not writing and not having to be on the beat?
Yeah, there probably will become some moments where I've missed writing, but again, I don't have to stop writing. It's just again, I'm not the go-to guy anymore for everyday coverage of this team. I'm not in the room. I'm not on the road. I'm not, I'm removed. In a sense, I've already had my time away, and I've had to deal with some of that feeling. It was a little tougher, a couple of years ago. It's a long story, but I mean, I had a rough year, and the year they won the cup, I had a lot of problems, and that's just kind of when things kind of hit me. We're like, I'm tired of the beat writer lifestyle. The first 20 years or so, I loved it. You're on the road. You're in a big fancy hotels. Everything's paid for by the company. You have a credit card with the company. You can buy whatever you want, basically, and lie on your expense reports and get it. You're in first class half the time, sometimes with all the miles I got. And then you're covering hockey for a living. You're in Calgary. You're in Montreal. You're in Los Angeles on a Tuesday night covering a hockey game. I never stopped pinching myself about that. But the last 5 years or so was more of a struggle for me, because it just I was burned out mentally, a lot of it, and physically. I had some serious physical problems too, and still do. Very wonky back. I was in pain all the time with. It's like, I had to take too many pills for that, and then pills led to other things, and then you're in day 4 of a road trip, and you've got Buffalo the next day, and then the next overnight trip to Pittsburgh, and then back home, and you're trying to live a family life. And, I think it's a younger person's game, and I think I stayed long. I had a good run, but I think it's time to bow out gracefully.
Okay. All right. Well, you mentioned, going all over the place and covering this team for a long time. Who were some of your favorite people to talk to? And on the flip side, who were people that you maybe dreaded talking to, either within the Avs or on other teams?
Well, there's so many guys I loved in the first, even in the last few years. I mean, just loved, I loved talking to Cale Makar when I got the chance, when they weren't, blocking him in the locker room for the media and putting him in the back room. I love talking. I went to UMass, I remember his senior year, and I had a great time sitting there talking about psychology with him right on the campus, just me and him. Those early years, the people I'll always remember, of course, starts with Sakic. He was a gentleman to me from day one to today. I actually consider him kind of a friend. I hope he says the same about me, although we don't talk as much. But, I've been in his house, and he's just such a nice guy. He's everything you ever thought about. He's a nice guy. He's a genuine deal. So he starts with him. Some of those early years, I love talking to Yui Krupp, thoughtful German guy. Mike Ricci, hilarious. Mike Keane, super nice guy, smart, funny, cut you up like a ribbon all the time. He had to have a thick skin. Patrick Waugh, I mean, what can I say? He was just a treat to be around. He was unbelievably charismatic in his own way. Got mad at me many times, but I always said this: Patrick Waugh just yelled at me. That's almost cool to me. Like
a badge of honor right there.
I grew up watching him as a teenager in New Hampshire, watching him as a Canadian. So to be in the room with him, I remember when he came that first night from Montreal, it's like, wow. And then I was in his house like 3 days later, doing a story where he was driving. I was in his passenger seat in a SUV, and he was driving his kids to school, and he just took me to I remember Circuit City to buy a TV, right? And he says, like, just deliver it today. Here's like 10 grand or something. He whipped off and paid these guys. And they said they couldn't deliver it that day. He's like, all right, does this change your mind? He whips off these $100 bills, and they were like, okay, we'll find time.
Yeah, that'll change your mind.
Memories like that, you can't trade for anything. The later years, there's so many guys. I mean, I could go on and on. Steve Konowalchuk, great guy. Ruslan Saleh, may he rest in peace. Love talking to him. Rusty, super long talks with him all the time, mostly about non-hockey stuff. Really, really busted me up when he passed away, along with Carlos Krastich. In that terrible plane crash. Boy, that's just horrible. Even down the road, I mean, guys I didn't always love to talk to him, and McKinnon was one. I mean, he's just tough. He didn't like the media that much. And I'm somebody, as a media person, I think guys either really like me after a while, or respect me, or they hate me. I don't think McKinnon ever hated me, but I had that well-known screw up with him on the call where I said F it.
Right.
Got me in a lot of trouble. But that's how I used to talk in the locker room with everybody. I mean, the F-bomb was that's the language of hockey. I said it in his locker and many other lockers. Unfortunately, I forgot I was on a Zoom call, in the playoffs, and I really thought like I was back in the locker room for a second or something, talking to him, and I went out on national TV.
Yeah.
I promised people I didn't mean it, but it didn't really matter at the time. I got called on the carpet pretty good for that.
All right.
It's been an honor. Most of all, it was just an honor to be writing for the people of Denver. Always thought I was just a guest of honor there. And it's funny, when I was a kid, I had a friend who, when we were in Hanover, New Hampshire, growing up as a little kid. This kid named Darren Olson was a new friend of mine. I was like 9 years old or something. Their family had just moved from Denver to New Hampshire. Like, his father worked at Dartmouth, where my stepfather went, and that's how he was there. And all I heard was Denver Broncos stories, Riley Odoms, Otis Armstrong, Ricky Upchurch. And then I saw these pictures of Mile High Stadium, and wow, that looks really cool out there. Wow. And from that moment, I always thought, I bet there's something weird about Denver after that. Like, maybe I'm going to be out there someday. And sure enough, it did. Wow. So I was always just really excited to be in Denver. Always just wanted to do the best I could as a punk from New Hampshire, and so honored to be part of the community for as long as I was and am.
So what's next? When the season's over, what's going on for Adrian Dater afterwards?
Well, I'm probably going to do. I do it now too. I do some work with kids, teaching.
You did that the cleaning, the gravesite cleaning thing that you were doing with
exactly.
That's phenomenal.
Thank you for remembering. Went to Normandy last year with living with Jake Schroeder for a week, chaperoning kids in Normandy. Unforgettable experience. I think that kick-started something in me that is continuing on. I try to do some work with kids in tougher situations, and so I hope to do more of that. I don't know if it's a full teaching gig or something, or maybe I'm a substitute, but probably working more with kids and trying to try to help them as much as I can. Pass on some of the lessons in life that I've learned. Maybe I'll be more of an example of like what not to do at times. Even that's fine. If that's my lot in life, I can help kids. I think there's a lot I've done good too, but tough. And you guys know this. You're in a little bit of a public eye as a media person. You make one false move, and you can be just poof. I mean, you are going to get crucified, not literally, but you are going to get hammered, and you have to know that going in. And I learned my lessons pretty good on that, and I accept what happened. And the good news is for me is I thought I overcame some of my problems, and I really had a last good few years. When I started my site a few years ago, Colorado Hockey Now, I was a big success, and I had a couple issues with there though, and so I moved on to a Substack. And bottom line is, if I can just go out with my head held high and know I did my best and was great, I'll be so super grateful for everything I had. Couple warts and all, but mostly it was all a great ride.
Well, we got one more comment. It's a comment, not a question, and it's from we call him Vargar. You know him as Rob from New York City.
Oh, yeah,
tattoo guy. Yeah, he's a everyday listener. Talked to him quite a bit, and he said he don't have any.
New York.
What's that?
I think I met him in New York once.
Well, he went to Denver, and you kind of entertained him, and you showed him around. And
will you please give me his number when this is over? I've been trying to get a hold of this guy.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Please.
He said, I don't have a question. Just wanted to thank him, and wanted everyone to know what an amazing person he is. You showed him around Denver when he went over there. The game he saw, they won 7-0.
That's right. Stayed at my house for one night. He flew all the way from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Stayed one night, I think, all the way back. Spent a lot of money on that ticket. Had to apologize to his wife. But he was a great guy. He slept in my guest room, I think, on a fold-out bed. I don't think his back has ever been the same. But he's a great artist, by the way.
He is.
He's an unbelievable artist. He's a tattoo artist, but he drove me. He drew my logo that I had my podcast.
Yeah.
If I start it back up again, people see it. But
well,
please tell him to somebody give me his number while we're done in an email, because I've been trying to get a hold of him. I actually want to put him to work a little bit for a friend's podcast that they want to do. I'd love for him to do a logo or maybe for them. Maybe at a discount, Rob.
He's listening to this now, probably freaking out. But yeah,
he's an awesome guy. He was one of my favorite guys when he came out. I cooked him dinner and everything. We had a good time. I saw a 7-0 Avs win, and they helped him win a cup. I mean, it's a good luck charm.
He said, just the conversation was priceless. Surreal talking to the man who was there from the team's infancy. He's an amazing person. I was happy to draw some art for his podcast a few years back. There you go. So he has nothing but glowing things to say about you. So
I'll be like effusively talking to him next, because I lost his number and I forgot I lost it. It's like gone. My phone died and all my contacts deserted me, and I lost it. So I'm so glad to hear this. This is the best. This is great news.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up, and I'll give it to you in a moment here. So, all right. Anything else you got for?
No. Dater, it's been an honor watching your career. Like, I honestly can say, as a guy from Alabama, I couldn't be here if it wasn't for your work. Like, I loved your books, and you were a great force for the Avalanche. I can tell you that.
Wow, Shaggy. Again, you already won me over with that Kiss T-shirt, but that's a really nice thing for you to say. So I am humbled by that, and you guys do a really good job on your podcast, and I'll be spreading the word as an evangelist for your podcast as best I can do. My Twitter following is dwindling as we speak, probably, but anytime I can help out, I'll be there for you guys. So thank you.
Much appreciated for it all. So one more year left with Dater, so he's not gone yet. So
unless I change my name, no, not gonna happen.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for today. So thank you everybody for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, for Adrian Dater, and for myself, Chris Maselli, this is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Absolutely.